And now we're seeing retirement was 20, 30 years sometimes. I think 1 in 3 women will live past 90 and 1 in 5 men will live past 90. And so when you're looking at your retirement, if you really truly are wanting to retire around 65, 67, you're having to plan for a very, very long time.
Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode number 30 of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. My name is Chris LeBrun. I am a productivity coach. I am just grateful that you have taken this time to be with us today. And let me tell you what, we have a fantastic episode for you today. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. But before I introduce our guest, I just want to remind you something that you probably know but don't think about very often, and that is that you are just one decision away from a totally new future. And of course, that can be both positive or negative, right? Depending on the decision. But here's the thing, you have to make that decision. I don't know what that looks like for you. I don't know if you know what that next step looks like towards your goal, but I know that you have to take it. Here's the thing though, you don't have to take it alone. That's why I'm here. I'm here to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And if you're contemplating taking that next step toward a totally new future, but you're scared or you're unsure how to do it, or you just want to have somebody to bounce ideas off of, or even to take that next step with you, I'd love to talk with you. I offer a free 20-minute strategy call that can help you make that decision to walk into your new future. And I'm going to put a link in the show notes. If you are interested in that, I would love to talk with you. Look forward to seeing the step that you are going to take that is going to help you, whatever that looks like for you. So with that, let us dive into the conversation with our guest today. And I know that this is somebody who's also helping people take a step forward in their life. Look, if finances aren't one of your personal goals, then this show is for you, because honestly, they should be. My guest today is Nicki Parra. She is a financial educator who's on a mission to help people build the life they've always imagined. That's something that I can get behind here at Wholistic Productivity. You just heard me talk about that. Her goal is to help people find financial freedom by educating them about their current financial situation and what they can do to plan for their financial future. Her passion for financial education is helping people all across the country improve their financial literacy and secure their financial future through a variety of financial vehicles like insurance, annuities, retirement planning. And here's the great thing. She does all of this from her home so that she can be with her daughter, which is one of Nicki's own personal goals. So please join me in welcoming Nicki to the podcast. Nicki, it's so great to have you here. I know that we go way back. You grew up next door to me, and your mom is almost like a sister to me.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
in fact, yeah, she is my sister. Yeah, right. So we go way back. I remember you coming home from the hospital, all of that good stuff. Yeah,
I don't remember that.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't expect you, but thank you for being here. Thank you for
Absolutely.
being part of the podcast. And I love what you do. I think it's so important. Like I said, finances should be one of everybody's personal goals. And so thank you for helping people who are maybe struggling with that, and for taking the time to be with us on the podcast today.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Let me start out by asking, how do you define financial wellness? Is it the same for everybody, or is it different? And how does it connect with our overall life balance?
Great question. Financial wellness is definitely not a one size fits all. And not only is it different for every individual person, but it can look very different throughout your life. As you grow, what you need in your finances can be very different. Early on, maybe a bigger focus should be on saving. Once you have a bulk saved and you're ready to retire, your finances look very, very different. Your goals are very different, and so it just really depends on the person and where they're at in life and what they really truly desire. Some people might want to live very frugal in retirement, and others, they might want to be lavish. They want to travel and live a life they didn't get to while they were working. And so understanding what that looks like for you is really the first goal when I sit down with anyone. What does it look like for you? What is your current lifestyle? Do you want to make changes? How much are you saving? Are you in debt? All those things. And it's truly looking at a financial needs analysis for each person.
Yeah. I think that's so key, because my financial goals at 20 were not the same as they are now at 50. I'm a lot more aware of retirement than I was, which is crazy, because I should be aware of it and planning for it at 20, at 30, at 40, so that when I get to 50, I'm not like, oh,
yeah,
now I get this right around the corner. What do I need to do?
Boy, if only I could go back in time and start my financial journey a little differently. And I think most people think that way. And there's a lot of fear around, it's too late. I haven't done enough. And so, that's one thing I like being able to bring ease of mind and let people know, no matter what age they are, if they're just starting their financial journey, start it today. You can't go back, but that doesn't mean it's too late. There's still things that we can do for someone who is in their 50s and worried about, have I done enough? Have I done anything yet? What does that look like?
Yeah. You focus on educating people on finance, and I love that. But how exactly do you do that? And why is there so much illiteracy, can I say, around finance?
Absolutely. I think it's a little taboo to talk about money, for one. And finances, it's not really anything taught in schools. It really should be. And I think historically you had to have money in order to be educated on your money. And nothing against bigger institutions that are focusing on somebody that already has money. But if somebody doesn't have a lot, they think, oh, well, you don't need to know how to manage it because you don't have much. And I think it's the exact opposite. If someone is in a place where they maybe need to save in a smarter way, then that's something we can help with. And the education, it is free. There's a lot of classes that we offer, a lot of one-on-one. When I do sit down with someone, the very first thing that we focus on is some of the education. I want someone to be empowered to understand for themselves what they might want. And if you don't know the information first, then how do you figure out what you want? It's like golfing and not knowing where the hole is. You have to figure out that pathway and create a plan and a strategy in order to get to where you want to be.
And I think we've gotten into this cycle where, like you said, it's kind of been taboo to talk about money and finance. And so that has created a situation you alluded to where we don't educate on it unless you're already wealthy, and maybe then your parents will talk to you about what they're doing and how they got there. And so then that just sort of creates this cyclical thing where if you don't know, you don't know, and you go out and make choices based on that. So how do we change that? Not just by talking to you. I know that's certainly one way to do it. But how do we change that as a culture, as a society, so that there are more conversations about finance and financial literacy?
Well, for one, I think there's a lot of fear around finances. And so a lot of times what I see is fear stops people from moving forward. I don't want to know how that account is doing. I don't want to know if I earned money or lost money today,
Right.
And so because of that fear, they just don't. They just don't look at it. They don't want to know about it. They just hope that they're going to be okay in the future until the future comes, and then they start worrying majorly at that point. But the education that we teach is to let people know that you don't have to be fearful of what's available. There are options. And so, to answer your question, I think that it's, for one, people don't realize that to look at your own personal finances doesn't have to be extremely expensive. The one thing we say is just go out and find someone that can sit down with you and go through a financial needs analysis. It's step by step, seeing what things look like for you. And then with that education, you're able to make those decisions without the fear. You have the education around it. And I think that that's one of the main points that I really, truly want to get across to every single person I sit down with. Yeah. You can have complimentary assistance from a licensed professional that can help you.
Yeah. And I think that the technology has changed as well, right? When I was a kid, you had to have a stock broker to buy stocks. And then I remember when I got out of college, your mom actually talked to me about stocks that she was investing in. And so I remember having to pay like $30 to make a trade. And for me, right out of college, that was like a large percentage of the money that I had to invest, right? And so now we can do all of that through Cash App. We can do that through, for free, a lot of different platforms where you can invest in stock. And I think in some ways that's a good thing because it's made it more accessible, but also it's probably made it more of a thing that people lose money at because they don't know what they're doing. And so now they have tried it and lost, and then that creates even more fear. So it's almost a double-edged sword in some ways, right?
It very much can be, yes. And I think one of the things people don't realize is if you're only saving, let's say $25, $30 a month, that doesn't seem like a lot, and it doesn't seem like it can go very far for you in the future. But depending on where you're saving, it makes a difference. What types of investments you're looking at. Compound interest, for one, is one thing we talk about a lot. And, those stocks that my mother had talked with you about back then, they might have been amazing at the time, but things change. They change. And so trying to find something, that fits your risk tolerance also makes a huge difference. Yeah. How stable is the location of your money? Is it going up and down? Is it only going up? Is it staying kind of level?
What are some of the biggest misconceptions you see about financial success, quote unquote? Where do we have it wrong with what success looks like in our finances?
That is an awesome question. I think the first thing that always pops up to me is people assume they have to make a lot of money to be rich, right? And that's not necessarily the case. You come across someone who is making a ton of money every year, but they don't have the knowledge or education around what to do with it once they earn it. And so these high earners are also high spenders. And they're not saving well. So even if they have, a very high annual income, they might not actually have many assets or their finances don't show, they're not going to show much of anything once they get to retirement. And so, I've worked with someone who maybe wasn't even making $2,000 a month, maybe, $1,500 or less, but they were really, really good savers. So I helped educate them on, where you're saving here versus where you can save here, different types of accounts. Do you want your money to grow at 4%? Do you want your money sitting in, a bank account that doesn't have any growth? Right? What's happening to that? It's actually depreciating. If you look at inflation, it's losing value over time. So if you can move that money that you've already saved into a different location where maybe it's growing at 4, 6, 8%, now it's actually growing while you're sleeping and you're outpacing inflation so that you have more of it later on. And so I think that's huge, is just how people save, not necessarily how much they earn.
Yeah, that's true. And again, for those of us that want to go back and save more when we're younger, right? That is critical. But I love that you point out that it doesn't have to be a lot. We don't have to save 50% of our salary or 10% of our salary. Whatever it is that we can do is important, and that I think that is something that's important for everybody to hear. I heard some stats this week that were frightening, not necessarily for me, but for society, I guess. The average 401k is dangerously low for many Americans. The average for somebody aged 44 to 64 is $71,000. And the average for Americans 65 and older is $70,000. I know you have a lot more information on this.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's something I face every day, is someone who's closer to retirement. They are honestly more worried about running out of money in retirement than they are passing away. And I think part of that is because people are living so much longer now than we were. And when 401ks were initially set up, and some of the other things like pensions, Social Security, they were set up in a way to, if the longest living person might have been 5, 10, 15 years past when they retired. And now we're seeing retirement was 20, 30 years sometimes. I think 1 in 3 women will live past 90, and 1 in 5 men will live past 90. And so when you're looking at your retirement, if you really truly are wanting to retire around 65, 67, you're having to plan for a very, very long time. And so those low numbers, clearly we want to help people save more and have more than 70,000 or 100,000 in their retirement funds. But then choosing different ways to allocate that money in retirement, the options that people have now, they really truly don't know about. And I know you mentioned early on some of the products that we work with. One of them is a product where you can actually guarantee income for life. You kind of get locked in at a certain amount. And what that amount is depends on how long you can move it into this account and let it grow there. But sometimes I work with people where they might only have 70 or 80,000, and we can roll that into a strategy that is going to continue that money. Let's say without the strategy, they might have run out of money at 75, 76. Well, now, once that money runs out, the product that they have, the guarantee is that the company will still continue to pay them year after year after year, no matter how long they live.
Yeah.
If they live to 82, that is the money that they'll continue to get until 82.
So I know the number is going to be different for everybody, but is there a good target that we should have when we're planning for retirement? Is like some sort of percentage around my employment income that I should be aiming for? How do I plan appropriately?
Great question. Again, it's not a one size fits all, right? So I can't just sit down and say, hey, this is what you're going to need, without sitting down and going through a full financial needs analysis, going through, even budgeting, monthly money coming in, going out, how you spend, what your bills look like. If you have any debt, we can focus on figuring that out as well. But once you have answered all those questions and I have a good understanding of what your retirement is going to look like, is it very similar to the way your lifestyle is while you're working? We're going to look at how much money you're currently making and how that's going to compare against inflation, for one, right? So let's say you have a budget of about $5,000 a month that you're earning, and you want to live comparably in retirement. Well, we're going to do some math to figure out what inflation might look like over time, and then increase that monthly income if we can. And one thing that's great about that is now you have this extra income that maybe you can turn around and save or invest in another way, even in retirement, and continue to grow that money. But you're also accounting for inflation for each person and how that might affect them later on. So that's a huge part of it. But for somebody that maybe lives really frugal and they're saving while they're working, so that in retirement they can live a much different lifestyle, then we're going to have to do some different so make some changes as far as how that money is going to be in the future. Might want to have a lot more in retirement, to travel more, to whatever that looks like.
Let's pause here for a quick break. We'll be right back. If you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of trying every to-do list or project management app, you know how exhausting it can be. You download the app, you set it up, enter all your data, and then scramble to cancel it before the trial ends. Trust me, I've been there, and it's no fun. That's why I love Efficient.app. Alex and Andra, a husband and wife team, have spent over a decade testing and reviewing software of all types so you don't have to. Calendars, project management, banking, planners, email marketing, you name it, they've covered it with honest reviews and side-by-side comparisons. And they don't sugarcoat it. If a tool isn't worth your time, they tell you straight up. I've personally found their reviews super helpful when I was trying to sort through different project management apps. It saved me a ton of time and frustration. Best of all, they often have special deals on the tools they recommend so that you can save money. I'm especially grateful to Efficient.app because they've been supporting the Holistic Productivity Podcast since the very beginning. The best way to check them out and support the podcast is through the link in the show notes. So next time you're looking for software, let Efficient.app do the work for you. Trust me, you will not regret it. So what is a simple starting point for somebody who feels like they're behind or they're just maybe disorganized financially? What's a simple way that they can start?
Great question. I think the very first thing I do with every single person is look at what type of savings account they have. Do you have a high yield savings account?
What does that mean? What does that mean, high yield?
So there's interest on pretty much everything, and either it's working for you or against you. And so an interest rate can be set by the bank. Most often you'll see a savings account with 0.2, 0.4, 0.0 nothing essentially.
Yeah.
And so your money isn't really going anywhere. It's just kind of sitting there. You're not growing it in any way. But if you look for a high yield savings account, there might be 3%, 4% of growth. So when you move money into that account, you actually every month are getting a little bit of money back from the bank that goes into the account and grows.
Okay.
And so this is one of the easiest ways to at least try to slightly outpace inflation on a smaller amount. Typically we'll say 3 to 6 months worth of what your income is. We call that kind of an emergency fund, right? Because there's always something popping up where you might need money for a broken refrigerator, or, your car needs new tires, or whatever that is.
Right.
This is an account where you, instead of keeping your money in checking, you have it in this spot where it's actually growing a little bit more.
Or instead of putting that emergency on a credit card.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Because if you think about interest on a credit card, typically it's 21 to 29%. And so that's actually money that you have to pay them. And it's growing a much faster rate against you.
Yeah. So putting that money into a high yield savings account is a good place to start, having that emergency fund, and then talking with somebody like yourself to figure out what the future looks like. That's kind of the path that you would recommend.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always ask, have you ever sat down and completed a financial needs analysis, or, look at your budgeting with a licensed professional? And 9 times out of 10, it's usually a no.
Yeah.
Right. And people say, oh yeah, I've done that. Well, have you done it with a professional licensed to help you, to guide you through how to look at that? And, that is, I truly believe, the first step in understanding what the next step would be for each person.
But that creates a little bit of maybe a challenge between the short-term security of that savings account, that emergency fund, or the long-term stability of a retirement plan? Is it possible to have both, especially if I have like a limited income? And is one more important than the other?
Absolutely. So obviously it's important to have both.
Yeah.
And the ultimate goal is to help with both. But my job is to kind of figure out where your money is going. A lot of people in my industry will say money listens very well, right? If you tell money to go somewhere, you automate it into that account, it's going to go there. But if you don't, and if you just aren't paying attention and you're spending, people don't realize how much they spend on groceries and eating out alone. It's very, very expensive. And so, if they see where the money is going and they realize, hey, you know what, I probably shouldn't be spending all this on Amazon or wherever,
Yeah. Right.
And reallocating that into a location. A lot of it it's kind of like, if you don't want to just go on a diet for a very short time. You want a lifestyle change, right? Because that long-term change is what's going to help you over time be very successful and maintain that success. And so when it comes to your finances, what we're trying to do is create a sense of saving, even if it is just a small amount, right? But if you don't have an emergency fund in place and you set something up for, let's say, long term, right? It's more likely that might fail, because what if something that thing that pops up happens, you don't have anything to fall back on. You put things on a credit card, your bills go up, and now maybe you can't even afford what has been put in place to help you for the long run, like long term. Yeah. And so by putting that first in place and having at least 3 to 6 months worth of savings for an emergency, and you've over that time of saving that learned how to save and strengthened that saving muscle, if you will, then now we can adjust our attention on what's important long term. Maybe slightly adjust where that savings is going. Instead of putting more into that high yield account, it's up to where it needs to be. We're going to take that and roll it into something that's more permanent. And you can start that more permanent, like you were saying, with a smaller amount, but it can be something that you grow into and you learn to save more. And I'll be honest with you, once you've gotten to a point where maybe you kind of get out of the debt, if you have any, and you have money also in your savings, which, by the way, you should be doing at the same time. A lot of people try to pay the debt first and then save, but you should really truly save kind of in both, because if you have to put something back on the card, if anything happens, then, but if you have that savings there, you're going to be using that and not going back into debt. But once you have all of that aligned and you're able to put more into the long term, then you can grow that and grow into it.
Yeah. I think that just becomes another one of these things that is overwhelming for people, though, to think through all of that, because number one, I don't know what I'm talking about anyways. I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't had that financial literacy. Now you're telling me I'm paying down my debt while I'm saving for an emergency fund and funding a long-term retirement. So how can people track and review their finances without having that feeling of overwhelm, or just like throwing their hands up and saying, I don't even know what I'm doing?
Well, for one, this is a much shorter conversation. When I do sit down with people, it's over multiple multiple points where we are educating along the way, and we don't look at all of it at once. You kind of focus in on the one thing that's important first. We never want to overwhelm anyone, but at the end of the day, what we're doing is focusing on something that's really good for them, right? At the end of the day, we're helping each individual person reach goals that maybe didn't feel attainable before. And I tell you what, when you look at those accounts and you see what you've saved, you go back and look at it, it's very gratifying. And you feel accomplished. You feel like you've done something, and it is, you've done something great for yourself, for your future, and maybe even for your family, like your legacy, your kids. You could be building something to protect them. And so that's, I think, where if you're able to take the first step and face and talk about money then you're able to get to a point where you can actually feel really proud and not be as overwhelmed, especially if you're taking it one step at a time.
Well, yeah, and I love that you go back and start with the things that people value and the things that are important to them in the short term, but also in the long term. And I know that those discussions, I mean, again, I talk about that as well. It's something that's so important. If we're just trying to check off goals that aren't aligned with our values or our vision for the future, what do they mean, right? They don't really mean anything. So I love that you actually go back and say, what do you want retirement to look like? What do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to take care of your children after you're gone? I mean, those are, I think, important questions that we don't sit and think about every day in the busyness of life, in the stress of every day. And if we're not planning for them, they can just creep up on us. And so I love that you do that, because I think that's such an important part of it. What does that process look like when you're working with clients to look at their future and what they value as part of that? Let's pause here for a quick break. We'll be right back. Living with pain is no fun at all. Whether it's sore muscles from a workout, nagging joints, or even stress that just won't leave you alone. That's why I love Little Golden Shepherd. They make all natural butters from organic herbs and essential oils, formulated to ease pain, reduce stress, and even soothe sensitive skin. I use the muscle butter after tough workouts, and the joint butter is perfect for my knees, which somehow were bad even when I was a kid. I'm so grateful to have Little Golden Shepherd sponsoring the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. The way they support the show is super simple. Every time you shop through the link in the show notes, a portion of your order helps keep this podcast going. And here's the best part. If you use the promo code WHOLEPROD, you'll save 15% on your first order. That's promo code WHOLEPROD, WHOLPROD. Try Little Golden Shepherd today. You're going to love it as much as I do, and your muscles will too.
I mean, it is a complete breakdown, and a lot of times that in itself seems a little daunting, but we are looking mostly at estimations for kind of, if you don't know a specific account, what you have or what your savings is within that, I will give somebody homework to go and look into it. But, one of the first things is really looking at risk tolerance. What is your risk tolerance? That alone looks very different for everyone. Some people like to put all their money into stocks and high risk and play around with the market, and they follow it and they know it, and that's almost like a game. It's entertaining and it's fun. You get those wins. Other people, they hate it. Right? They do not like. I personally, I don't like losing money. Right. And when you have money in some accounts, there is that possibility that you will lose it, and it's almost like you're renting it, right, until you actually pull the money out and it's truly yours, if it's going up and down and, on the market. Right. And so finding out what someone's risk tolerance, I think, is the first goal to say, okay, do you want this type of account, or do you want something where you're never going to lose money? And in instances where maybe it's following the market, but not on it, it can go up with the market, but then it kind of holds and you don't lose when the market goes down. And, they might not get as much growth on the top, but they can guarantee that there's no loss on the downside. And so that's a huge part of it too, is just figuring out what each person needs. And then from there, planning. We do a lot of research, right? So I don't work for any specific company. I actually represent the industry as a whole. And because of that, when I go to research for a specific client, I'm looking at over 400 companies and every product that they offer and finding that best fit for the person. And we sit down and we look at it and we go over all the details of how, whatever the product is, how it works, how the accounts grow, the pros and cons to that, and it's their decision at the end of the day. If they think it's better than what they're currently doing, then they can move forward with it.
Yeah, and I know you've helped me in that area. Definitely looked at a lot of things to figure out exactly, what is going to be best for us and what, is going to suit our needs. I think that risk tolerance, though, is something that changes with us as we grow. I know in my younger years, I was open to a lot more risk. I was willing to see those roller coaster type things happen a lot more than I am now, because time is shorter until retirement now. And so I have seen a pullback in some of the risk that I'm willing to take. And no matter what age we're at, we should never have our entire nest egg or all of our investments in something that's high risk. And we probably shouldn't have all of it in something that is no risk at the very beginning of our life, right? I mean, maybe as we hit retirement, that's a good place to have it. But so I think openness to risk changes as we get older as well. And that's been something that I've seen in my own life as well.
Yes, it truly does. And, I remember, as I told you, I'm kind of a lower risk type person, but in my mid 30s, I was looking at an annuity, and putting a bunch of money in. And this is something where you kind of lock it in for a while, and you can lock it in at maybe lower risk. But the financial advisor I sat down with at that point, he said, well, we don't usually give this to anyone below 40.
Yeah.
And he said, you can take risk. You have time to make up. If you do have a loss, in your 30s, you can make that up. Whereas, when there was the major market crash in 2008, someone who was extremely close to retirement, there were people that never made up the losses.
Right.
They never could, and I think for the majority of people, the statistic I heard was it was an average of 10 to 12 years to make up the money that they lost.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fear around that.
Yeah. And I was sitting with donors at the time, because I'm in fundraising, and I'm sitting with donors who have just retired thinking that they have this much, and now they have this much, and if you're not watching on YouTube, you didn't see me do the hand motions there, but they're thinking that they have a lot for retirement. And it's not just that they don't have the time to recoup it. It's that they actually need that money to provide the revenue, that the income that they're going to be living off of for the next couple of years. And so that quality of life, maybe what they can do in retirement years, completely changed. You mentioned an annuity. That's something that's locking in a guaranteed payout once you start taking from it. So that's that's another one of those things that you can use to help keep that income rolling in retirement. Is that, did I summarize that correctly for somebody who didn't know what you were talking about when you said annuity?
Yes. There are many different types of annuities, and one of them is guaranteed income, which I did kind of explain earlier and didn't mention the name of. But yeah, there's some that are focused more on accumulation and growth, and some that are focused more on what retirement looks like and what your income looks like. And so depending on the person and what their needs are, there's different types there that are available.
Yeah. And you can walk everybody through that and figure out exactly the type that they need for them.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. As well as different types of savings accounts.
Right. Savings accounts. And I know life insurance and, all those things that we talked about. It's getting that right mix of investment vehicles together. Well, thank you. This has been a fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed you sharing and talking about it. I end every show with the questions. These are inspired by James Lipton, host of Inside the Actors Studio. And it's just a fun way of getting to know you a little bit better, hearing, all of the things, all of your answers to the questions. So are you ready for this? I know you had them earlier. You ready to go? Take as long as you want to answer them.
Let's do it.
Short answers are fine. Long answers. All right. So, Nicki, what motivates you?
I would say people, interactions with other people. I've always worked with people, no matter what type of job or history or whatever. But I'm a very extroverted person, outgoing, and interacting with people, helping people, teaching people. That's where I really enjoy, just everything.
What discourages you?
What discourages me? Setbacks. I mean, I think that's kind of common for anyone, but yeah, when I'm really truly expecting something and that expectation isn't met, that type of setback, it can be a little discouraging.
One word that describes you at your best.
Stubborn.
One word that describes you at your worst.
Also stubborn. That most people see that as maybe a negative at times, but I think that it's both what makes me at my best and worst.
Okay, no
and I'm
comments.
Sure you're laughing because of our long history here.
Yes, our long history together. Yes. Other than family or work, what gives you purpose?
Exercise, fitness. I don't know. Yeah. Weightlifting and running.
What guilty pleasure brings you joy?
Eating cheese.
We must be related.
If you can count that as a guilty pleasure, but
yeah, absolutely. How do you celebrate a win?
Probably by doing something, I don't know, like going out to eat or going to a festival, or it's an activity, it's a memory that you're building, something to celebrate. Yeah, it's usually an event of some sort, activity.
How do you bounce back after a loss?
That has changed over time as I've come into a stronger entrepreneurial mindset. I've learned that the best way to bounce back is to throw myself into something that's moving me forward. If that makes sense. So if I had a day with lots of canceled appointments, I'll just go and try to schedule as many appointments as I can to kind of make up for those losses.
Yeah. Back to that stubborn thing. Who was the last person? Who was the last person you expressed gratitude towards?
I would say with some of my business partners that are within the company that are mentors, that I look to for guidance and education, having such amazing people at your fingertips that can help you and guide you, not only for myself, but how I'm helping, clients and people moving forward. It's an amazing organization that I work with. So, yeah.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Maybe to enjoy the moments more. I don't know. I always had adventurous spirit. I moved a lot, and my 25-year-old self had lived in Mexico, was living in California, soon to be in North Carolina, just moving a lot. And I think, the friendships and the people that you connect with in a moment that's such an important thing to just hold on to. And, you know, you never know who's going to be in your future. So, yeah, just to capture the moments and appreciate them for what they are.
Very good. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing with the audience. I appreciate that. And we will definitely put links in the show notes for how people can connect with you if they want to have more of those conversations about financial literacy or what their financial future looks like. They can get in touch with you there. So we'll do that. But again, thank you, Nicki, for coming by and talking with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. It was awesome to be here today.
All right, that is it for the show today. Thank you for being here as well. Hopefully you learned something from that conversation. And again, if you are closer to that $70,000 for retirement, you need to talk to Nicki. Check out the show notes. That is at holisticproductivity.com/30 for episode number 30. We'll have all of her contact information there, and as well as anything else that is important for you to know about this show. Make sure that you've subscribed so that you can follow and be alerted when the next episode comes on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. If you're watching the show there, you want to be alerted for that next episode when it drops on Tuesday. You don't want to miss that. It's going to be another fantastic show. And make sure you are also following at Wholistic Productivity on your favorite social media platform, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Substack. We are there. We are providing a lot of great productivity tips, motivation, helping you reach your goals. And as I've been talking about the last couple episodes, join the Holistic Productivity Group on School. It's a community focused on helping each other be more productive in every area of life. Nicki is in the group with us, so you can connect with her there as well. She has her own group on School as well. So School is a great platform. We look forward to seeing you there, and just a lot of great resources for you in the School community. And here's the best part. It is free for you. So again, come check us out. You'll find that link in the show notes as well. But thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of the Holistic Productivity Podcast. And as always, my goal is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Before I sign off, close your eyes for a minute, unless you're driving. But close your eyes and imagine this. It's Friday. You're excited for the weekend. TGIF, right? You're wrapping up the work week, getting ready to leave the office. But as you're walking out the door, you start to reflect on the week and you say, what did I even accomplish this week? It's a frustrating feeling and a horrible way to start your weekend. You know that you've worked hard all week, but you have little or nothing to show for it. If you've ever had these feelings at the end of your week, I have a special offer for you to help you on your productivity journey. I talk about it all the time. Being intentional with your time is one of the biggest parts of productivity. And one of the best ways you can be intentional is to plan your week. Planning your week provides clarity on your priorities. It eliminates confusion about what needs to be done, and it sets you on a path for success. Now, I've developed the perfect tool to help you plan your week. I call it my Sunday strategy, and I want to give you my Sunday strategy worksheet and guide absolutely free when you sign up for my weekly newsletter. The guide offers clear strategies for using the principles of holistic productivity to plan your week. You'll have a mindset shift away from the toxic aspects of productivity, and you'll get step-by-step directions for using the Sunday strategy worksheet. With my Sunday strategy, you only need 15 minutes each Sunday to plan out your entire week. It'll let you identify major projects and tasks that are coming up, assign those projects to specific days, and best of all, there are different sections for each area of your life: professional, personal, and purpose-driven, so you can reach all of your goals. My Sunday strategy worksheet also includes a weekly habit tracker to keep you focused on the habits that you want to develop. So if you want to avoid those Friday feelings of frustration and despair, you need my Sunday strategy worksheet. It's the perfect planning tool to help you build the winning strategy for your week. It's a resource you can come back to each day to keep you focused on reaching your goals, and it's an accountability tool to help you track your progress. Basically, it can help you have the most productive week ever. Like I said, it is completely free when you sign up for my weekly newsletter, which also features more strategies and tips to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. To get my Sunday strategy worksheet and guide, go to mysundaystrategy.com and sign up. That's mysundaystrategy.com. There will also be a link in the show notes, but again, mysundaystrategy.com. Look forward to having you back here for the next episode of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast.